Top of the morning, everyone. This is Jacob Holgerson, your favorite game designer. Today, part 4 of my devlog for Bad Girl, a 90s throwback 3D action game. Let's take it from the top. So, for those of you who are new here, who are not familiar with the project, Bad Girl is a third person shooter. It's a solo project developed by me, developed in Unity. It's a big homage to the 1990s, which I love, to everything from the action movies of the era, like Con Air and Speed and whatnot, to video games like Die Hard Trilogy, GoldenEye, Tekken, Virtua Cop, all manner of stuff, and of course music like the Eurodance of the time and even architecture and design and all of that stuff. So, yeah, a big love letter to the 90s. And that's something I worked on for about 2 years. Um, so, yeah, it's a game that I made myself from scratch. All of the code, all of the art, of course, the game concept and the level designs and all of that, that's all me. The only thing I needed help with was music, which was handled by an awesome Finnish guy called Tommy Furberg. And animations, which I got off of Miximo, the asset store, and stuff like that. And I made great progress on that project. I completed 2 levels, I started another 2, and I created advanced AI, as you can see in my previous devlogs. However, then something happened. Um, there was a long break. I got a job actually as a lead game designer at a company called Learning Yogi. I had a great time there. Um, it it enabled me to grow in terms of a designer and a developer, and um, it granted me new project management skills. So yeah, all around a great time. And that, however, made me realize that there was way too much scope. Bad Girl had grown and bloated into something that was not manageable by a solo developer like me. There were too many art assets necessary to make the different game environments. There was too much storytelling involved, too many scripted events, too much voice acting, stuff like that. And I also realized that the game had very inconsistent graphics. So it didn't look like, some people said it looked like an asset flip, which was very ironic since, yeah, everything was made by me. Like the only 3D model in that wasn't me, it was a tree, a single tree. So yeah, it was inconsistent and it looked amateurish. And I tried, when trying to improve the character controller, I actually ran into roadblocks which prevented me from progressing. And of course, I also realized that it had over time deviated more and more and more from the original concept, which actually was a modernized, essentially Die Hard trilogy. But it turned into something, much bigger, much more uh, advanced, and much more narrative driven, so to speak. So the decision was made to start over, to modify the concept, and things that came to my mind um, for improving it, for starting over, was faster. It needs to be a much faster paced game that's more, fun, much more action, much more interactivity in the environments. Of course, I want to maintain replayability, and the linearity that sort of started popping up in the previous build of the game wasn't really what I wanted originally. So now I'm focusing on much more of an arcade experience, like short levels that are somewhat hard, and if you fail, you have to start the whole game over instead of just the level. Um, and based on these thoughts, I created a new game design document. It's going to be readable in the design document sections of my homepage, once I complete it to a greater extent than now. Um, and I'm going to use the asset store much more than I'm doing right than I did before. Uh, to begin with, I bought an off-the-shelf third-person controller, which is much more advanced than what I had, and it supports both, mouse and keyboard and controller, and I think it even supports, touch screens. So yeah, much more advanced than what I had, and I'm also going to get art assets off of the asset store, in part because it enables me to work faster. Like, um, for what you earn in an hour or two can save me weeks worth of modeling, and of course in many cases the assets are of a much higher quality than I'm capable of doing, because I am primarily a game designer. I'm a game designer who knows how to make art and knows how to code, but coding and art are not my primary forte. Um, and I decided on a much more systemic approach than I had before. And what does that mean? Well, that I have essentially managers and scripts that handle everything in a sort of standardized way. Um, and all of this is down to enabling me to quickly make levels. Like, creating a level should just be, dragging and dropping stuff into the scene. It shouldn't be that I write bespoke scripts, or I make unique objects and prefabs for every single level. That's, a big waste of time. And of course, I'm improving the visual fidelity of the game, so I'm not going to have any low poly art stuff unless, it's supposed to be seen from a very long distance. I'm going to use much more advanced visual effects and shaders and stuff that like that. And I'm going to do that at essentially the price of draw distance. Like, the levels are going to be much smaller, and therefore I'll be able to pack them with way, way, way more detail than what I was able to do previously. And of course, by doing this, another goal is to not have loading, uh, not have any loading screens. Like, once the game is loaded, like in GTA, once the game is loaded, it's loaded, and you can just play it. No waiting for anything. So the structure is the next step. And that's what I've been working on in practice since then, to set up the structure of the game so that that works. So I've created a standardized flow. As I said before, the whole game takes place inside a single skyscraper. And because of that, I have a game manager that's able to manage everything in a standardized way. It keeps track of all of the mission objectives, as you can see here. Um, as of now, the mission objectives will be a combination of killing a certain amount of enemies, saving a certain amount of hostages, defusing a certain number of bombs, killing a boss, or gaining a certain amount of score. Score is going to be much more important than it was before. In fact, it wasn't even a thing before. Gaining score is, in the arcade vein, going to be a thing now. And I'll be able to, through this manager, set what the objectives are. The game manager is going to keep track of score. It's going to enable and disable certain level game objects. And that includes, like, the level specific assets, the things that are physically interactable, the enemies, the hostages. Um, and there will also be things in the game world that will change from level to level. Like, as time progresses, the police will get more assets to the plaza. There will be SWAT trucks. There will be news helicopters circling around the skyscraper, and that will appear over time, and that will be dictated by the game manager. And there will also be a standardized completion sequence. You can see here to the left in the green that um, the structure of the levels will be the same. You will start inside the elevator. The doors will open, and you'll walk out, and you'll defeat enemies. You'll complete objectives. Once the objectives are completed, the elevator comes back, and it will come with a bunch of more elite enemies. Of course, you won't have to defeat those reinforcements. All you have to do will be to return to the elevator, and then you'll have a standardized completion sequence, which will consist of first the camera circling around the skyscraper, um, and you'll see a readout of your score. And then you'll see a news anchor basically give exposition to what's going on. And then once the exposition is done, the camera will pan up, and you'll look up at the floor that your next level is going to be on, and you'll see the name of the level, which will be somewhat descriptive. It'll be, a construction site. It'll be a restaurant, arcade, whatever it may be. And then, of course, you'll see the elevator open, and you walk out and complete the next level. This is going to be standardized, and by standardizing this, development will be way smoother. So how did I create the world? Well, I created a modular building. Each floor, there's a base for the building, and there's a roof of the building, and then there's a single mesh for each floor, which will be duplicated for however many levels I want. There is a standardized square floor pan. This skyscraper is surrounded by a plaza, and that's actually all of the environment. What you can see around it is a 3D skybox. So I'm basically cheating Unity into giving me extra draw distance. It's rendering an entire city, but in fact, nothing is. But in fact, the draw distance isn't longer than a few hundred meters. Like, I've brought it down from the standard 1,000 meters that Unity has as standard. And I only have real-time lighting. That's one thing that will give the game much quicker loading times. It's also a technical limitation I have to work around, because Unity has a limit that each pixel can only be affected by 8 light sources. So I have to do a bunch of somewhat hacksy things to abide by that. And real-time lighting also enables me to have a day and night cycle. So each level advances the time by 1 hour. So you're going to be inside the building for probably a full 24 hours, if not more. And you're going to see, the surrounding world change. You'll see the skybox change. You'll see the angle of light change. You'll see the street lights and the lights in the skyscrapers around you turn on and turn off, and so on and so forth. Another thing to create this kind of real feeling world is there are ambient sounds. There's a manager for that, and ambient lights. Actually, if you look at the video, you'll see that there's blue lighting that flashes, and that's because of the police. So there are managers for all of these things, and I'm trying to achieve all of these things to basically bring the world to life in a way that I, in spite of using much more high-end lighting, wasn't able to do before. So what are the next steps? Well, to turn all of this into a game, because yeah, I have the structure, but I don't actually have gameplay. I need to introduce enemies and hostages and bosses into the game. Um, and how do I do that? Well, in part, I'm going to bring in the things that I did before. Like, I'm quite happy with how the enemy AI worked before. I might need to modify a few things, bring it up to date to be compatible or to be satisfactory to my new abilities. But it was all right. Like I'm pretty happy with the things I showed in the previous devlog. I'm going to reintroduce hostages as well, and I'm going to introduce bosses. One of the bosses is the Drifter VTOL jet, which is a bit inspired by True Lies, but it's also inspired by a vegan. Um, so yeah, that's one of the bosses that's going to be in the games. I'm also going to need to introduce menus. Um, and then of course, I'm going to have to the game make the game appealing as well. And what do I mean by that? Well, there needs to be a narrative that explains why all of this is happening. I need to write dialogues and exposition that's not going to feel hammy. That's also going to be of an acceptable length. I don't want something that's too ridiculously long. Um, and yeah, it has to be appealing. It has to feel cinematic. Maybe it'll feel a bit, Resident Evil style, corny. We'll see about that. I need character design. I'm not quite happy with how the protagonist turned out, and since I'm aiming for a higher fidelity art style, I can't have this sort of N64 slash Dreamcast style protagonist. I need to improve the graphics, and since I'm improving the graphics, I need a new character design. And not just for the protagonist, but for the enemies, for the news anchor, for the bosses, for all of the characters. I'm considering to hire people off of Fiverr, um, or I'll find someone who's willing to make characters for the game. I've been using ChatGPT to play around with different concepts. I want the protagonist to be fun. I want the game to be very colorful and interesting to look at. So I kind of like this concept with the yellow training bra in a bold with a bold color, the red shooting gloves or well, boxing slash shooting gloves, the bright colored baggy pants. I want it to be, I want a protagonist that's fun, that's strong, that is hot, that is a bit sexy, but I want it to be sexy in a way that, uh, girls find aspirational rather than condescending or objectifying. So that is a mix I really want to find. Um, and another thing is I generally want to improve the visuals. You just saw the skybox and the skyscraper. I'm happy with it how it is, but I can do so much more. Like the skybox needs to be filled out to give a true sense of a city, and I need to have a fog in the 3D skybox to give the proper sense of scale and all of these things. Um, yeah, so once I do that, and of course, I'll need to make really compelling levels and balance everything. But that is the path ahead as I see it right now. Um, so, yeah, that's it for me. Like, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment sections below. If you like the idea of this game, please subscribe and like. And of course, if you want to cooperate with me, if you want to make more music for me, if you If you make drum and bass music and you want it featured in my game, reach out to me. If you want to draw concept art for the characters, reach out to me. Um, if you want to make the actual models, reach out to me. Um, I'll happily cooperate with anyone. Um, and yeah, until next time, have an awesome day. This has been Jacob Holgerson. Have a good one.